Hello everyone and welcome back to the Star Trek Critic. Today's episode is The Enemy Within, where a freak accident on the transporter causes Kirk to split into two parts, good and evil. As usual, the episode will start with 100 points and we take away 1 point for each error, just as if you turn this show in as a school project to be graded. This show starts on planet Alpha 177 where they're exploring. However, on this planet, the nights get extremely cold and dangerous. Kirk says 120, not 120 correctly. It is a natural bad habit of everyone to put in the word "and" in when counting. He doesn't lose a point for that, but does lose a point for not using the metric scale. Minus 120 Celsius is too cold to survive through. That's what she said. Fisher falls, hurts his hands, gets covered in ore. Minus 1 point for not having a first aid kit with all the landing party equipment. According to the dictionary, coadjutor is a bishop. Scotty is holding a real radiation detector. Scotty and Wilson check the transporter for bugs and find nothing wrong. There is no indication of how long it was before Kirk beamed up, but in the show it feels like just a few minutes. Kirk almost falls off the transporter platform. Notice he does not have his Starfleet emblem on his shirt. Minus 1 point for Scotty leaving the transporter unattended. Minus 1 more point for the transporter turning itself on for no reason. The only explanation is evil Kirk needed to come on board unannounced. The captain's log loses a point. Anytime a narrator has to explain to the audience what is going on, there is a problem. The captain is making a log stating what is going on, while at the same time he's saying he doesn't know this is happening. Just how long were commercial breaks in the 60s, where the Netflix figured everyone would forget what they just saw a few minutes ago? The emblem on Kirk's shirt magically reappears, so minus 1 point. Scotty suggests he goes to sick pay. Kirk goes to his quarters instead. Rand is in his quarters doing paperwork. And Kirk will never get to sleep with that light shining on his face. McCoy uses a mini dustbuster and unmarked squirt bottles to cure Fisher. Minus 1 point for having hard liquor stored in sickbay. They would have break-ins all the time. Rand moved since Charlie X. Evil Kirk is drunk and sweaty. Spock thinks Dr. McCoy has pranked him. Minus 1 point for the transporter splitting someone in two. I know this is the whole idea for the show, but if it actually happened, both Kirks would have died instantly since they only have half of their bodies. Yeoman Rand likes to paint. Evil Kirk uses eyeliner. Shout out to Star Trek for managing an attempted rape scene in a 1960s TV show. If it wasn't for Kirk having an evil twin, it would have definitely been cut by the censors. Another shout out to Yeoman Rand for calling for help, and to Fisher for calling for help immediately, even though he knows it's the captain of the ship. This isn't completely true since he did go to the transporter room. And a final shout out to Yeoman Rand for going to the doctor and reporting it, and Mr. Spock for taking it seriously and investigating. After all, this is the captain of the ship. Instead of keeping quiet, Rand sets an example. One more final shout out to Fisher for standing up to the captain as a witness. Frequently, TV shows have messages subtly embedded in them. A prime example is The Brady Bunch, which always has a lesson for kids to learn. Sometimes they can get a little preachy, and at times like this episode, they need to dance around the subject just to get it aired. But thanks to a transporter malfunction, on October 6, 1966, Star Trek beat the Me Too movement by 50 years. And what happened to the scanner? Minus 1 point for not considering the shuttlecraft. Before posting hundreds of comments that this episode was filmed before any shuttlecraft was built, a simple blurb stating that they can't fly them to the surface for some reason would have solved that problem. Just like in some shows, they have to use the shuttles because the transporters won't work on that particular planet for some reason. Minus 1 more point for not using a different transporter room. This isn't the only one, and this storyline does not interfere with the two Kirk storyline. Good Kirk is acting a little sluggish now. Ironically, Spock's concern of the captain looking weak is one of the reasons the previous incident would have been swept under the rug. The official passing of the dog. So how does this dog survive on that planet? The purpose of books on the shelf is so Kirk can shove them off. For being so aggressive, evil Kirk doesn't go to the bridge and try to take over, he just screams. Minus 1 point for Kirk conveniently having skin-colored makeup in his room for no other reason than for evil Kirk to cover up the scratches on his face. The real reason? Starfleet has a no visible tattoos policy, and Kirk has to cover up his Death Eater tattoo every day. Wilson loses a point for handing Kirk his phaser, when the reason he has his phaser is to be on the lookout for an imposter that looks like Kirk. Listen closely. Spock remarks they tried to transport heater units down to the surface, but they were duplicated and didn't operate. Sometimes this scene gets edited out and you ask why they didn't try it. It would have also been this simple to add a blurb on why they couldn't use the shuttlecraft instead. And minus one more point for not beaming down more blankets. That's what she said. Wilson says evil Kirk took his phaser. We all know the truth. Spock isn't convinced either. Spock asks good Kirk where he would hide if he was evil Kirk. Minus 1 point for not sending security to find him. That is their job, and it would have saved time and money because they wouldn't need the body doubles. Spock agrees with me, and if Kirk doesn't want anyone to see him, why is he out on the manhunt at all? Evil Kirk loses a point for not having the same phaser he got from Wilson. Spock's peaceful nerve pinch almost gets good Kirk killed. That's what she said. Spock starts to analyze the two, but I don't think Kirk is thrilled about that. And minus 1 point for not telling Scotty they just blasted a hole in the wall. These guys are troopers. Scotty's talking about the new hole here. It might have disrupted all the transporters, but we really don't know. Sulu saves the ground crew, but seriously, how do those little dogs survive on the surface? I think I should take a point for McCoy not considering this. The two Kirks holding hands helps them regain some of their strength. Good Kirk decides to have a drink. McCoy compares Kirk's dark side and his light side. Wasn't there a movie about the same thing with some guy named Anakin? Scotty finds a bypass for the transporter. Spock says to send the animal through. Scotty and Wilson are shocked. Spock obviously doesn't like the dog. If this show aired today, they would make a killing selling unicorn wigs for dogs. He didn't know it as a pup, but he was destined to become a TV star just because his owners taught him to play dead. He even fooled the doctor. Okay, Spock loses 2 points in a row here. Once for getting the stardate wrong, and once for saying he is the second officer when he is really the first officer. And he's worried about the captain's decision-making skills deteriorating. McCoy is concerned that the shock killed the dog. Spock believes it was fear, which Kirk has more control over. And Spock loses even another point for calling his Vulcan half alien, since physically and logically he is more Vulcan, but prefers to live with humans. His two sides aren't at odds as much as he claims. He's simply trying to compare it to what Kirk is going through. Minus 1 point for not having an armed guard in sickbay, and keeping everyone else armed instead. And now look what happened. Special Effects loses a point for Planet Alpha 177, looking exactly like Planet M113. Bad Kirk is learning how to play the system now. She's not totally convinced. This happens to Kirk as much as he breaks the Prime Directive. The screen is off for two reasons. Special Effects at the time couldn't have a person in front of it. But even if they could, the stars would be a distraction from Kirk's rampage. In real life, it would rarely be off, but not impossible, so they don't lose a point. Bad Kirk is turning into an Australian seagull. The scratches are on the wrong side, so minus 1 point. This is a good over the phaser shot. His fear is legitimate. Is he unconscious at this time? Because they really don't say. I think he is. The transporter works and the landing party is saved. Now I have a question about this transporter since they use it for everything. The number one purpose is for beaming up and down equipment. So, why are there steps? The transporter pad was built by the lowest bidder again. Kirk and Randall probably need a few long talks to sort things out. And Spock loses the biggest point of all. His comment is totally inconsiderate. Although she doesn't say anything, the look she gives him says, "Spock, you're an asshole." Wilson was excellently played by Garland Thompson, who also had a cameo in Charlie X. But I have to take a point for them not casting Lloyd Haynes again, who played Alden in the second pilot and spent the entire hour repairing the ship. Alden helped sell the series by breaking up the all-white cast. Then they said thanks but no thanks and went with Lieutenant Uhura instead. They could have brought him back a few times for parts like this one. So despite all the major plot holes, this is definitely a show not to be missed, so be sure to watch it. The Enterprise crew flies off into space with a score of 75. That's it for today. I appreciate your viewing. Be sure to click that like button, the subscribe button, and share with someone you know. Check out my other videos and playlists and leave your comments below. Would it be possible for the transporter to split someone? Was Bad Kirk really an imposter? How do those unicorn dogs survive on that planet? Thanks again for viewing, and I will see you again real soon. That's what she said.